Windy.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Coffee Break. We've got our friends from FracTracker here today. What's up, Ted, Rebecca, and Shannon? How's it going?
Hi.
Hi. Good. Hey, everybody. Hey, Ryan.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Yeah, we've got some folks here. Michelle in Santa Cruz, California. Hello, Pat in Philadelphia. Karen in Dayton, Ohio. And Theron in New Mexico. Awesome. So, a bunch of folks here. Welcome. Hey, Robert. Hey, Marin. Hey, Luann. So Shannon, do you want to kick things off and tell us what we're doing today?
Sure. Yeah, it's an awesome crowd. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. And Ted and Rebecca, too. Ted and Rebecca have done a lot of work in the past couple of years making some major improvements to FracTracker's photo imagery platform. FracTracker, for those of you who might not know, is an organization that monitors and communicates the oil and gas and petrochemical industries in the US. And we're national in scope, but we're a pretty small but mighty team. We have 8 staff members across the US. Most of us are based in Pennsylvania. Ted can introduce himself, but he's based in Cleveland. And we offer a lot of resources on the website, data and maps and hundreds of different articles looking at issues related to pipelines or petrochemical facilities or anything you can imagine related to oil and gas issues. So yeah, we recognize a lot of our good friends' names here, but good to connect with new folks. And I'm Shannon. I'm the communications manager at FracTracker, and I'll let Ted and Rebecca introduce themselves.
You want me to go first, or you want to go first? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Ted Auk. I work at FracTracker. I've been here for about 8.5 years. And in that time, I think we've done some pretty amazing work. And I think pretty early on, I realized on a trip to Carroll County, Ohio, which was the heart of fracking country in 2013 or 14, call it. We did a flight over that area with an awesome pilot, and that was probably one of the biggest learning experiences I've ever had, just seeing the scale and scope of the oil and gas sector in the county, what fracking actually means in terms of landscape change. It was an eye-opening experience for me, and since that time, I've kind of seen the value. I think I've seen that being up in the air with really good pilots, and more recently with a drone, has offered us a way to do what a friend of mine in Illinois who lives next to a sand mine says, which is look over the berm. So whenever you see a berm built, and you ever see a hydro seed put on a berm, whatever's going on the other side of that's probably not great when it comes to fracking. And all of this has allowed us to do that. So that's my intro, and I'll get more into our images, but I'll yield to Rebecca.
Thanks, Ted. And thanks again, everyone. I'm Rebecca. I'm based in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I started at FracTracker in 2019 after getting my master's degree in conservation. And when I first started here, I really didn't know, I wasn't very familiar with the fossil fuel landscape in general. And this is one of the first big projects that I undertook at FracTracker. And it has been a long process. It's still ongoing because we're still building out this platform. But as far as that goes, it really did help me piece together like extractive industries, recognize what stuff even looks like. I had no idea like a compressor station versus a refinery when I first started. And it has really helped me put all of that information together, coupled with the other work that we do at FracTracker. So yeah, again, thanks for joining us to explore this platform, because it's been super useful for me as far as learning more about fracking and other forms of extraction. And I think it could be really useful for anyone interested.
Yeah. You want me to go ahead with this, Ryan?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure. So yeah, let me just say a couple more things about this, which is that I kind of getting back to that original flight and another flight that I'll talk about in a second, where we looked at the sand mines up in Wisconsin. Um, the 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 thing that really resonates with me when you get up in the air is just how good the oil and gas industry has been at separating how we define what they do. So they've managed to kind of calve off a bunch of stuff, whether it's waste disposal, pipelines, sand mining, compressor stations, whole build outs of whole regions. And, I think that's a really brilliant thing that they've done. And what we need to do at FracTracker and in other places is to reconnect them to their impact, the total impact of what it is that they do. Because if we don't quantify that, we don't illustrate that with these images and the like, they're really, they get off scot-free in many respects. So that's kind of been what we've been doing. So I think maybe if it's okay, I'll just kind of show some of the images that I think kind of move me or really resonate with me from what we've done. And then I'll hand it over to Rebecca to talk about the nitty gritty behind the scenes, if that's okay. So let's see here. Oh. Share screen. The stream is limited to 4 simultaneous videos. Oh, I'm having a little bit of a.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Is it saying that there's a limit?
Yeah.
All right. Well, what I'll do is I can let's see. One of us has to go. Who's it gonna be?
I can go because if it's between you and me, Ryan, I should go because you know more about the tech side of all this, and I don't want to get us
Oh
lost.
no. I'm so sorry, Shannon.
Goodbye. I'll miss you all. Thanks for snooping around, Ted. You're in the crowd if you need me.
Here's what we can do is after the screen share presentation is we'll beam you back in.
I'll be here. I'll
Yeah.
be here. I'll see you in the
Sorry,
chat.
Shannon.
All right, cool. All right, thanks,
So-
Shannon, for that. And Shannon's still in the chat, so we can all still say hi to Shannon.
Okay, so has everyone seen my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I thought I'd just kind of go through some of the images that, as I said, have really kind of stuck with me over this time. And this is a library. This is an album that Rebecca and I built from an amazing project that we did, trying to understand the landscape impacts and just total impacts of fracking on a watershed basis. So like there's a bunch of different ways that you can kind of parse the oil and gas sector. And we chose with this project and with some similar projects to analyze its impacts on a watershed basis. And this was a project we did in the Pine Creek Basin, which I believe is, kind of north of Williamsport, PA. And I'm going to just kind of focus on a couple of images here. One is this image. This is out in the middle of state game lands in northern Pennsylvania. And you might say, well, what's so special about this? And what I think is special about this is that you kind of had the complete suite of activities that fracking requires on a pad basis. You have 2 pads, you have one on the bottom, you have one on the top. You have the water impoundments adjacent to the one on the bottom. And then you have this kind of recycling process that's happening in between. And then you have these access roads that have been built. And the reason that this image, and then this is the same image, but just taken from a different direction. And then you can see the drill rig in the background there. And this image really struck me because it just tells how many costs and how much we're just giving away our resources to this industry. There's no way that this kind of access to the middle of nowhere makes sense unless corporate welfare is kind of run amok when it comes to the oil and gas sector. And I think that this image of a couple of a drill rig and pads out of the middle of nowhere, which should in no way make sense financially, actually happens in the United States. Plus, these are resources. These are the public's resources. These are the commons of Pennsylvania, and yet we're handing them over for pennies on the dollar. So I think that this image speaks to, it might not say it on its face, but to me, it speaks to corporate welfare run amok and states handing over resources to the oil and gas sector. that we have no business doing, and that they have not demonstrated an interest in taking care of in a responsible way. So that's one image, and I think that this is one that happened a couple years ago, and I should also say that a lot of these images happen because of an amazing partnership that we've had with the folks at Lighthawk, which is a nonprofit that brings together amazing pilots to do this kind of work with people like me and others. I don't really get to take pictures of pretty things often. It's mostly just this, but this was a really valuable project, I think. This is an image from Corpus Christi, Texas, and this is the refinery row just to the west of downtown Corpus Christi. You're looking kind of due west towards Flint Hill Resources refinery. And you can see all along this canalway here, you can see infrastructure all over the place, tank farms, refinery infrastructure. And what I think is also interesting about this that you won't notice from the image is in the top right of the image, you see like a kind of a terminal right there. And that terminal is related to a company called Northern White Sands. And Northern White Sands is a company I'm familiar with because they do a lot of frac sand mining up in Wisconsin and Michigan. So to see their impact and their footprint, not only in the upper Midwest, but also in the Gulf of Mexico and Corpus Christi was really interesting. It kind of gives you a sense for the cradle to grave impact of the industry, and in this case, a company. So I think this is a really interesting image because when we did this was not a watershed approach to understanding the industry. This is more a regional approach because the oil and gas, Exxon is building a cracker plant across the bay, Corpus Christi Bay, from this site right here, which will have a huge impact on the bay. I mean, it'll be dumping billions of gallons of saline water back into the bay, making it, not a salt flat, but parts of it probably a salt flat. So the oil and gas processing and Gulf Coast region is interesting because not only do we have corporate welfare, like I mentioned earlier, but we also have an industry that's kind of showing its hand in that what they're really trying to do with, some of you might probably know this already, but this is not about energy independence, and it never has been. It's about getting it out to markets, globalizing the product, maximizing profits, and kind of leaving everyone in its wake standing when the music stops. So I think that this is an image that shows, a community level impact of going all in on oil and gas sector. Now, Texas obviously is very familiar with this and has for years and years made that cost benefit, and it's made sense to them. But I would say that what's happening in Corpus Christi is going to have huge impacts on, all sorts of stuff upstream of it. So the other thing to point out is this infrastructure downstream on the coasts and elsewhere, like we have in Pittsburgh with the Shell cracker, all of this infrastructure, when it clicks in, what it means upstream, that is pipelines and well pads and the like, is it means a tremendous increase in activity and, in my view, an inefficient allocation of resources. I think what we're seeing more and more is that the oil and gas sector needs more and more resources to get a unit of gas, or in this case, oil, out of the ground, and all of this infrastructure means more of that. So that's kind of another image that I think is really interesting. I'm going to show you another not interesting image, but these are the kinds of people, that I respond to, or the reasons why we get a lot of these images. This is Doug Wood on the left and Teresa Landrum on the right. Doug lives in South Rockwood, Michigan, outside of Detroit, just on the other side of the Wayne County border. Teresa lives in the 48217 zip code, which is where this photo was taken, and you can see the Marathon Oil Refinery in the background. Teresa lives in the heart of one of the most polluted environments in the country, probably second only to Cancer Alley in Louisiana. So I've worked a lot with Teresa to document what's going on the other side of these burns and a variety of operations in Southwest Detroit. But Doug is an interesting guy because he lives literally right next door to a sand mine. And the sand mine has had huge impacts on his quality of life, his family's quality of life. It's, done all sorts of things to him. And I've known him for, I think 5 or 6 years now. And we've been looking at that mine with the aerial photography and with the drone that we have access to kind of chronicle what's going on over there, because it's very hard to see because of the you know, the berms and the like. So these are two of the people that we respond to, and we try to get these images because more and more it's obvious that, you know, photos, when georeferenced and kind of properly archived, like Rebecca's done, are data, just as much as a spreadsheet or a shape file or some of the other kinds of coins of the realm that we've been dealing with for so many years at FracTracker. This is an image. This is the Rover pipeline in Ohio coming down into the Ohio River Valley from a, well, 25–30% slope, and you can see these farms on either side. I think this is an interesting image because this was a site that a friend of ours, Jill Hunkler, turned us on to, and she kept saying, you know, I don't trust this pipeline. I don't trust the way that they're putting it in. And what we've noticed over time is that hill right there that you can see going up there, pipelines have no business being put in on that kind of landscape, let alone being put on in December and January like the Rover was and hydroseeded in January. And you see that the seed never takes. And now what we're seeing is massive erosion, movement of material all over these slopes, all over the place. So pipelines are a huge deal. Obviously, everyone knows that, and their impact and ubiquity of them and the necessity that the industry has for them is something we've been focusing on a lot. But this is actually a transmission line. So this is a FERC regulated line, but there's all sorts of other feeder pipelines that a lot of you are familiar with, the gathering lines, which we've been photographing from the air for quite a bit. All basically to make the point that we have a landscape in Appalachia where the pipelines are going over that, as I said, has no business, you know, hosting those kinds of pipelines. And, you know, we're really worried about this. And we have federal regulators, regardless of who's running the show in Washington, and state regulators who don't seem to be responding to people and seem to let these right-of-ways just go in, you know, willy-nilly whenever they want. So these are the kinds of images that we collect to just kind of show this and try to report it back to the states, to show that subsidence is happening. It's a very dangerous thing. And what worries us is not necessarily, well, I shouldn't say not necessarily. What worries us is there's all sorts of black swan events with pipeline explosions, but what worries us in just kind of ground truthing this is just the day-to-day instability of pipeline installations and the movement of soils and the like over these pipeline right-of-ways, and what that's doing, and is it even being monitored? I thought I'd show you a couple images here. This is a massive Mark West operation in Cadiz, Ohio. This thing has just boomed in the last couple of years. I took this image just I'm going to say a couple of months ago, and I hadn't been there in a couple of years. And to see this whole build out happen in Cadiz is just unbelievable. A lot of this is happening on reclaimed mine lands. So you have these sunk assets in the forms of, you know, old played out mines that are now hosting this infrastructure. And I'll get to one of the issues with that at the very end of this. But anyway, this is the kind of infrastructure that we can chronicle, that we need to show, because, you know, again, the oil and gas sector tells you it's just a pad here, a pad there, or many pads in one county. But what they don't talk about is all this downstream processing infrastructure they need to maximize profits. And it's important to show that and show what that infrastructure looks like. So that's a important image. This is probably the least sexy topic to bring up or to kind of photograph, but to me, it's the most important, and that's the waste impact of the oil and gas sector. This is a Consol Energy wastewater impoundment in Noble County, Ohio, that we've been monitoring with a bunch of folks for several years, including some folks that live right around the corner from them, and Leah Harper at Freshwater Accountability Project. And this is a site that's now been filled in, you know, out of sight, out of mind, nothing to see here. But for a long time, this was a major wastewater impoundment. And as you can see here, we flew over this and we just got lucky. And you can see all the brine trucks going in and out of this site. And this is the kind of infrastructure, waste infrastructure, and kind of poorly monitored, constructed infrastructure that's receiving a lot of the fracking waste that, just as many have reported on and kind of done studies on, is just everywhere. And to me, it's not only is it the industry's Achilles heel, but it's the thing that they're kind of playing the most cowboyish with, just fast and loose with. So this is the kind of site that we've looked at for many years, and if you went over that site right now, you would never even know it was there, but it was, and its long-term impacts are. Our Department of Natural Resources in Ohio has done a horrible job on that too. There was a question that came up at the outset of this thing about infrastructure that's been taken down. This is not infrastructure that's been taken down, but this was a win in Ohio. This was Seneca Resources came over to Ohio from Pennsylvania to the town of Brookfield, adjacent to a community on the just actually where I'm taking this photo from. And this community successfully fought this class 2 injection well. And so the Seneca Resources had this huge build out, this huge footprint that actually just ended up kind of going bust. So they went by the waysides. This site never ended up happening. It was going to be, someone on here might know better than I, but I think it was 5 wells that were going to be established here to just receive predominantly waste from Pennsylvania, fracking waste. So Seneca Resources wanted to do that. It ended up not happening. It ended up not happening because of the great work of a group of amazing people led by a woman named Gloria Douglas and Jim Hennessy, who live on either side of this property. They brought Dennis Kucinich to look at this. They brought a lot of publicity to this, and it didn't happen. So in my view, that's a win. But this is an example of a company that came in full bore and ended up leaving town. This is some signage associated with that site, but this is an interesting photo because this is the security firm that the company hired to protect their site. They were getting so much bad publicity, so they hired a rest in peace security firm. I believe they're out of Pennsylvania, who was founded by a former military sniper. So you can see that they were not feeling very comfortable about their operation, and they ended up having to bring in a lot of security because they just were not good neighbors. But anyway, I kind of digress, but that's an interesting image of the security firm. And by the way, the neighbors on either side were, north of 80 years old. So I don't think they were really going to be doing a lot of grandstanding. They were just not going to have this happen. And they did a good job of fighting it. So speaking of pipelines, here's another pipeline. This is actually the Rover on the, I don't remember which it is, but the Rover and the Utopia transmission pipelines. And this is through outside of Worcester, Ohio. And on in the background there, you can see the Yoder family farm. So this is an organic Amish dairy farm. And eminent domain was used to go through his property. He ended up getting a pretty penny for these pipelines, and he actually managed to maintain his organic certification. But needless to say, you can see this is what it's like. I mean, you have this, it's quite the contrast of an Amish farm with this huge pipeline infrastructure going right through their property. And he has had a huge issue with, you can see this pipeline on the bottom, with actually maintaining cover over that. And he's really struggled to maintain that and to maintain certification, because in the operator, and I don't remember if it's Utopia, but anyway, had a real hard time with maintaining cover and actually preventing soil runoff on those sites. So that's another issue. And this is a relatively flat area too. So imagine those slopes that I showed you earlier. Maybe I'll just, I'll breeze through a couple more here. These photos are of the sand mines in Wisconsin, and these were some of the first sites that we looked at. And I just want to show you one thing. This is, if you can see here, this is Wisconsin province. This is in Hickston, Wisconsin. And to the right, you can see the Settlebauer beef farm here with the silo right to the right here. So the Settlebauers live right adjacent to this property right here. And then if I kind of go back to this album, you can see this is what the Settlebauers used to deal with every week. Explosions. They would get, I think they would get 24 hours warning. And they have a huge beef not huge, moderate beef operation. And actually, interestingly enough, maybe I'll show you a quick photo. This is a Settlebauer farm from the ground, and that farm, the mine is to the left here. But the thing that's interesting about these folks is when you meet them, they tell you that their beef, their cattle used to experience something like 4 to 5% mortality before that sand mine came in, and now they're experiencing 10, 11, 12% mortality. So they're not sure if they're going to make it. And this was like a year or 2 years ago. So these are the kinds of people that are impacted. So when we talk about oil and gas, we're not just talking about all of what I've shown you. We're also talking about these sand mines in distant places and their impacts as well. One more sand mine one, and this is Unimin's sand mine in Tomah, Wisconsin, and this is their huge rail spur. So they put all the sand on this rail and they ship it out. But I'm showing you this because to the left here, you can see this forested swath. Since we took this photo, all that forest is gone. They've been plowing right through that sand, that silica bluff right there, and taking all of it up. And I mention that because this is Bill Greendeer. He's a friend of mine. He's now passed, so rest in peace, Bill. He's a member of the Ho-Chunk Nation, and he was fighting sand mining in his region for many, many years. He and his family have been impacted from a water quality perspective by the oil and gas sector. And so these are the kinds of people that we hear from. And then they say, we need to look at this stuff from the air. Would you have time to do that? And so we've done a lot of the photography that's tried to help these folks, illustrate the impact. But Bill always told us, or he used to tell me, that this forested area right here, this was his family used to hunt through out here, and now it's gone. And so is Bill. But Bill lived long enough to see his ancestral lands just get decimated. And you can see, what is Bill standing on? He's standing on a hydroseeded berm. This is the very kind of berm that, anecdotally we know go up as soon as something bad is going to happen. Let's see here. What else did I want to say? This is a photo I just took recently of an actual fracking job, not drilling, but actual fracking job. And this shows you the scale and the intensity of traffic that's involved in fracking. It's not a mom and pop operation. And if you look to the left here, this is this huge winding road that goes down into Dillonvale, Ohio. I think I have a photo of Dillonvale. Maybe I don't. Let me see here. Maybe I do here. Yeah, I do. Here's Dillonvale. This long, windy road going from that frac pad down into Dillonvale, that's how many of the trucks get up there. Again, we're talking about a landscape and a road network that has no business hosting this kind of infrastructure. In this case, we're not talking about pipelines going across a landscape that has no business hosting. We're talking about actual roads and communities that have no idea how to handle the volatility and the intensity of this kind of thing. So this is Dillonvale, and this is also a community that sits in the valley of a bunch of frac pads all around it. So you can imagine when everything settles down in there, what that's doing to those people. Just one more that I'm going to show you, and then I'll hand it over to Rebecca. I hope this wasn't too boring for everyone, but this is a photo I just took last Friday. This is from Kevin and Marlene Young's horse farm in the foreground here. And this is Caithness's Guernsey natural gas power plant. It's being constructed on a former pillar mine along the highway south of Byesville, Ohio. And I show this to you because this is kind of one of those stories that when you meet Kevin and Marlene, this is their house with the green perch there, and this is the track where they train all their horses. And this is the natural gas plant, and then the laydown yard right here. The amount of material that was moved to make this power plant has channeled water directly towards their house and through their property. So now, what once was pretty safe from flooding, now even at moderate rains, they're getting flooding in their property. But more importantly, this is a family, and their neighbors are a community that represent the kinds of people that stand in the way of quote unquote energy independence and progress. And to my mind, they should be made whole. They should be moved. they should be offered way more than fair market value instead of what Kevin and Marlene got, which is nothing. And now they're sitting there wondering, all the equity we put and labor we put in our property, we're left with nothing. And I kind of hate to end it on a downer like that, but I think that when we talk about energy independence and natural gas as a bridge, we have to understand that there are people and communities and all sorts of things that stand in the way of this. And I think we need to be really careful casting aspersions on those communities and what they mean and what they deal with, because they've been subjected to countless boom and bust cycles, and this is just another one. And I think that these images, these and others, show you what that looks like from the air. So I hope that was helpful, and we have tons more, and we're going to keep doing this because we have really good partners and more stuff to look at. We like to really look at the same kind of stuff like this over time to see how it changes. And I've done a lot of that with the sand mining, and that's been really illustrative of, the impacts of that part of the industry. So I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Ted.
Sure.
I think those were great photo examples of to illustrate all the different issues that.
All right. Thanks so much, Ted. I really appreciate the presentation. There were a lot of comments coming through as you were sharing, and a couple of questions as well that appeared here in the area.
Do you want to go ahead, Rebecca, and we can go to questions next?
Yeah. Just lost my train of thought. Yeah. So obviously, you're the examples you provided paint the portrait of all the myriad issues that associated with these industries and how so many parts of our nation have been impacted. And I think that was a big reason that I approached you, Ted, about this project in the first place, because we did have, I think at the point that we started this, to my mind, there were 1,200 photos in our library. I saw the opportunity to make it more accessible, which is something we at FracTracker work towards, is increasing accessibility of data and resources like this. So I saw a great opportunity and to share information, but also to, connect the landscape, the upstream and downstream, and how it looks across the nation and in certain regions and stuff. So to get a little bit more into that and how you can use this, I was going to try to share, it says too many. But yes, I was going to explore the platform. I'll share my screen and then we can explore the platform. I'll explain why we labeled things the way that we did. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. So, well, this is our homepage. And don't worry, you don't have to take extensive notes because most of what I'm going to say and describe is in this about section of our profile. So let's start with collections. You see, I went to albums, view my collections. So this is kind of how I started to picture or construct this resource from the big picture on down to more specific sites and infrastructure that is outlined in the albums. But the collections is useful because it will group, or we grouped all these photos and images. All these photos and images according to, what issues they touch on, what infrastructure is illustrated or captured. So yeah, regions and states, so you can dive into something more localized, more specific that way. Infrastructure and transportation is giant album because it is exactly that, infrastructure and transportation, which is really illustrative of the greater landscape that Ted was describing in all of his examples. Give a little background information, but let's go back to, our albums. So these are, all the albums are in collections, but this is probably a really good place to start if you're just diving into this resource. So we have different state albums, different types of infrastructure albums, also regional. We plan to make more of these. Project-specific albums like that, Channels of Life. Communities that were impacted. Ted and I really felt that it was important to amplify the experiences of people living close to it. And he's captured a lot of great pictures, also cultures and livelihoods of the people who live close that he was just describing, and like what they've gone through is just crazy. But I think these photos really help communicate that. So yeah, lots of areas, lots of different issues, city pollution, toxins, so many photos. We're looking at, right now, waste and wastewater, so many photos. Right now, we're looking at a little over 1,800 photos. I still have more to upload, and we're uploading them all the time. But you can explore by album, by area. The way to search within our photos is to go to our photo stream and click this. See, it pops up. You're searching within our photos. So this is really useful if you want to zero in on a particular area, like a town in Ohio or a town in West Virginia, a county. We made sure with the photo labels, which I'll explain a little bit more, but we made sure with the photo labels that we at least got the county level. So this feature could be really helpful to search like more local like that. Or if you wanted to search for a particular company like Chesapeake or Energy Transfer Partners or whoever, Wisconsin Proppants, like whatever industry that you're trying to examine a little bit more. I think that's a really useful feature. So you can search just within what we've posted. You can also search within, like just in general, fracking or refinery. But I would say that that's probably easier to hone in on by exploring our albums a little bit more. Because we have broken it out: frac sand mining, frac sand storage and processing, frac sand transportation. And we developed this entire labeling system. So let me just go to some random picture. We developed this entire labeling system and tagging system to communicate as much information as we could in the photo label and in the way that it's tagged. So you'll see, and every picture has this description below it. It explains the photo label. So if we know the information, like obviously what kind of site you're looking at, who operates it, and where the photo was made, like where the infrastructure is located, and when the photo was taken. So this could be really useful as far as, like Ted was saying, to examine one place over time, because the ones that he showed of the Mark West facility in, is that Ohio? West Virginia, Ohio. He took those photos more recently, the one he showed, and several more recently, but I think you visited that site first, I don't know, 4 years ago,
At
5
least,
years ago.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a really interesting way to examine, a specific site. I do have it organized with our most recent photos of each album, like most recent to oldest. So that's where I think it is most useful to use the photos, like to go to the photo stream and search within our photos. So if you wanted to look at that, again, for example, that Mark West site, you could search for Mark West, Ohio, and you get all the photos we have of that site. Yeah. Oh, Ted, I think this is do you think this is a good time for you to explain the geotagging?
Sure.
Do you think I missed
won't-
anything?
No, I thought that was great. Yeah, I mean, that was like, I think Shannon said we started this a couple of years ago. I think she's being kind. I think we basically started this because of COVID. sitting in our homes, because I remember the first day I did this, I sent a photo to Rebecca of my son on my bed with me, and he was doing whatever we were doing in March of last year, and we're like, what are we doing right now? But so yeah, as far as geotagging is concerned, I mean, it's kind of what we do, right? We make maps, and we're a data group. So if we don't georeference any of this, I think it's still helpful, but it's only 60% helpful. I think you gotta understand where this stuff is, and then that's a lot of what we've been doing, to just kind of figure out, or to compile this stuff in a way that makes geographic sense, and to give folks a sense for the scale that we've covered, and also to tell you like where we're weak. I spend a lot of time georeferencing. I mean, when I do stuff with a drone, the georeferencing is already baked in, but a lot of the stuff with the photos is something that's pretty painstaking. But yeah, I mean, it's been a big part of my process is remembering where this happened. But it's also like Rebecca was saying, like it helped her understand like what actually constitutes fracking. For me, it really jogs the memory of like, oh yeah, that was really bad, or oh yeah, that reminded me of that, and then trying to make those links. And the other thing is, speaking of companies, is like I said with Northern White Sands, when you hear their name pop up in disparate places, it's like it really gives you a sense for like who these people are and what this kind of Leviathan has done and where it is. And so that's been very helpful for me. And again, if we didn't georeference this, we wouldn't be kind of doing justice to the images. And I find also, like if we talk to reporters and stuff, it's very helpful so they know, you know, I mean, I pretty much have memorized everything at this point, but so that they can kind of see, oh yeah, that was there. That's the area I'm looking at. Danville would be an option. Danville would be an example of that, because I know that a lot of folks are starting to pivot and look at places like Jefferson County, Ohio, and the upper reaches of this Appalachian storage hub build out. And that was one of those places. And so, yeah, anyway, I'm blabbering, but.
Well, did you want to give an example, or like did you want to walk through the like
Sure.
geotagging, how to access it and stuff?
Sure, I can do that. Shannon, I think this means.
Also, while I'm on here, Ryan, I don't think you have to keep adding me. I think Ryan feels bad. But, oh, Ryan left now. Okay.
Oh, Ryan left. Okay.
Well, I also wanted to ask, while you're sharing that, Ted, if people want aerial imagery, or if people, you know, are looking for a certain resource, can they reach out to you?
Me?
I was going to come back around to that actually towards the end after we discussed geotagging. But yes, of course, we invite, please contact us if you're looking for something in particular. If you're having trouble, like, you know, if you're having trouble locating anything, I hope not, because I spent so much time on the organization of this. But please, yes, please reach out to us. I mean, even in the last month, I've had 2 or 3 or 4, I don't even know, journalists, bloggers reach out, exploring this resource, which is great. That's like why we did this. So yes, after Ted describes or explores geotagging for a bit, I'll hop back to that and talk about how you can use it, how to download, and all that jazz.
Okay. So, oh, well, I guess we can get to that afterwards. So let me share here, see how that goes. All right. Everyone can see. I'll go back to this image. So this is that Pine Creek project that we were working on. And Rebecca gave you a good sense for this. And then if you look in the image, you can see this map. And this map is what we populate, or map is what we use to georeference all these images. And you can see here, this is where this photo was taken. And then you can kind of scroll out. I mean, it's like basically any other base map that you'd want to use. Oh, why is it going in the other direction? Oh, it goes in the other direction. And then I'm not seeing it right now, but there is a way to get, and I don't want to take up too much time right now, but there is a way to get all the images from this watershed that we've taken on here to populate that. And so this gives you a sense for this image, and this is basically what I do. Basically, what we did was we would go into each of these images and try to figure out where figure out where they were using this tool. So whenever you find an image, if it's a specific region of the state, like Rebecca's got everything itemized by state, well, then if you want to hone in on the state and you're looking at, like, I can't even think of a county in Pennsylvania, but like Belmont County, Ohio is a county I know real well. You can do that because all of these photos have been referenced as such. So it's kind of a painstaking process, but I think we did a really good job with it. So I don't really want to say any more about that, but so this is kind of the georeferencing part of it. Not everyone has been georeferenced. If I didn't know where I took it, or if we had someone, like we had an amazing gentleman that some of you might know, Bill Hughes. I'll stop sharing. We had an amazing gentleman named Bill Hughes who lived in Wetzel County, West Virginia, who's also not with us anymore. So rest in peace, Bill. But actually, I probably should have said this at the outset. He was the motivation for this, because he was an amazing man who did amazing work with his camera, and very few resources documenting the impact of fracking in Wetzel and Doddridge County, West Virginia. So anyway, but my point is if he took it or some other folks took it and we don't know where it was, I mean, I'm not going to georeference it, but that's a small percentage of the total photos. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Ted. I think if you want to see more of the photos populate, it's dependent on the map, it's dependent on how far in or out you're zoomed. So if you navigate to our photo map and you're like, where is everything? Just zoom in a little bit, zoom out a little bit. It usually takes a few minutes or a few seconds to populate, maybe because we do have so many photos geotagged. But yes, thank you, Ted, for that explanation. And I'll share my screen again. Sorry for the flip-flop, guys, but I wanted to close out. Okay. I wanted to close out just by explaining how to use, as in all of this is free, which is again here on the About page. There's more, and under each photo. Using this website, downloading stuff is free for non-commercial use. Actually, that's why we did this. So we just ask that you cite us accordingly, which is under each photo. I'll just pick a random one. Here, photo citation. That's under each photo. So if you make use of it, please cite us in the way that we ask. Greatly appreciated. We would like to know if you're using resources. So again, please reach out if you need help, or if you're just like, hey, we're using this at info@. That's our email. Respond in a timely manner. But if you wanted to share across social media platforms or embed it or something, click that little arrow right here. Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Pinterest, I guess. Email. You can embed it on a website or web page, I guess. And then if you wanted to download, there's multiple sizes here, but if you click view all sizes, there's so many options. So yeah, like, please use this. Please reach out if you do, and if you have any questions. And I think we got it all.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Ted. It was awesome to, like, you put so much work into it. It's really impressive. I mean, and what a resource for us to be able to access. You know, it's not easy to get our own industry images, you know, when we're working on our campaigns.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Here
hope
comes
it's
Shannon.
helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I'm really glad to have this opportunity because I want people to use it. We did put so much time, and there's so much there. I think I said earlier, we have 1,800, a little over 1,800 photos right now, but this is very much a living platform. I still have more photos to upload. Also, if you have photos to share that you would like to see on our Flickr platform, you know, send them our way. We can talk about it. We can do that.
That's great. There was actually a question about that here from Luann, you know, if we submit photos, and you know, it's about submitting, you know.
Yes, we feature, I mean, the vast majority are Ted's. Thank you, Ted. But we do have photos by other FracTracker staff and photos by partners and activists from various locations. And we're always welcoming that because it is about sharing this resource and sharing information, making it accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and reach out to us. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any tips of new places we should go document or check up on. I mean, I say we, but I'm kind of volunteering Ted when I say that. But yeah, great job. Great job, Rebecca and Ted. That was really awesome. And thanks for all the encouragement in the chat. You all are really sweet. We appreciate it.
Yes, thanks again, everyone, for being here. And thanks in advance for using it and sharing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have time for a couple questions?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I do not have time for questions. I think Ted's got it though. Like,
all right,
he's an
that
expert.
sounds good. No, they're just a couple quick questions. So yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Thank you
We'll
for all
see
you
you
do.
later. And yeah, and so I think the main one of the questions that popped up is, you know, do the photos automatically share to social media? You know, Karen's asking about the share links in Flickr.
Oof, you got one that I don't know. I'm not a social media person. Shannon, can you help me maybe?
I believe so. But if you go to one of the photos, just click on that share link, see what happens. It won't post it like as soon as you click on the button. It'll sort of ask you if you want to enter a caption or something. So I would suggest just click on it and see what happens.
Sorry, I keep leaving and coming back. There's something off with my internet today. The wind is. It's amazing.
Really
it's amazing I'm even here.
Don't blow away.
You see the comment from Robert? Says, I'm a local community TV producer. Your photo video would work on several programs I'm developing in the Athens, Ohio area. So that's cool getting connected.
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah. So another question that came up was Karen said, I tried to hire a drone pilot, but he was afraid he didn't have the right to take photos. Have you ever had any legal issues with taking photos?
I mean, I don't know if he had a Part 107 license. I mean, I know that at the beginning of this, I was doing it without that. And that was, I don't know. But I think that, I mean, if you have Part 107 and you stay within the confines of that license, you should be fine. I mean, the FAA is the one that decides whether that is what they say it is. And I always am pretty diligent about doing that. So, yeah. Yeah.
Another question.
Go ahead.
If someone submits a photo to you, should they be geo-referencing them for you?
I mean, that would be great. I mean, that would be ideal. As I said to Luann in the chat, like, I think, if you can give us the nearest street address, plat, latitude, longitude, whatever you want to do, give us something close. That would be really helpful. And like, kind of like what Shannon and Rebecca said, like in real time, we're pretty limited, like we're limited, especially during COVID, to a car, and not during COVID to flight costs, which are prohibitive. So, when these kinds of things happen, and the other thing I should say too, which is interesting, is when there was the XTO explosion, Exxon explosion in Powhatan Point several years ago, you're also limited when you fly with Lighthawk or with any responsible pilot by TFRs, temporary flight restrictions, that are put up over these sites. And the industry, anyone for that matter, can declare one of those in perpetuity. So like if they say we want a TFR that extends, out yay wide, I think it's a week. I don't remember what it is, but every single time it comes up, they can reapply for it. And I know that with the Exxon site, we got one shot of that site from a kind of a hot valley, several miles away. We couldn't get over the site, and yet the Ohio State Troopers were over it videotaping, which was great. But anyway, my point is TFRs are a serious thing, and if they invoke them, you're up a creek.
All right, thank you.
Somebody asked about who in the federal government, Susie asked about who in the federal government is on board with your efforts. That's a good question, but I would like to mention that on Tuesday, May 4th, we have a public meeting concerning the Falcon pipeline. So for people who are in the geography of the Ohio River Valley, you might be interested in that. You can find more information on our website, or you can reach out to me directly. I'll put my email in there, but I bring that up because we'll be talking with PHMSA, Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, which is a federal agency, at that public meeting. So we'll be addressing some concerns with the Falcon pipeline, which Lighthawk has some aerial imagery of, and I think Ted has taken some aerial imagery of that as well. So that could be an interesting time to hear what they have to say.
All right. Well, everybody's still there.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm like by myself on video again.
I'm here.
Great. So, fantastic. Well, anything else you all want to say before we wrap up?
I don't have anything.
No, I don't think so. But if we missed anything, feel free to reach out anytime.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much. This was really cool.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Shannon.
Until next time. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
See you next week, everyone. Take care.